Matt, I think we're rolling, man.
All right, killer.
I appreciate you coming on, brother.
Yeah, I'm stoked. You were saying Kip told you to interview me or do a
Yes.
podcast?
Yeah, you
Okay,
were you
cool.
were on you were towards the top of that list. You gave me a bunch of guys and I've kind of been running through them. So, yeah, you were on that list. How do you know Kip? Just hunting or what?
I honestly don't know him personally. We have a really good mutual friend, Shane Dorian.
Yep.
Um, so Shane, he probably heard about me through Shane or whatever, and I'm guessing that's probably how he thought of me. But we've messaged a little bit back and forth on Instagram, and yeah, he seems like a super cool guy.
Right on. Kip is really cool. And you said you're friends with Shane Dorian?
Yeah, Shane's a really close friend of mine.
Cool. Well, once we get done, shoot him a text and remind him we've been exchanging emails, so I think he might be next or in a
All
week or
right.
two. So I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Shane's the man. He's like my hero.
Is it weird when people say and call you like one of the best aerial surfers in the world? Is that weird for you to hear?
Uh, I mean, I get I guess it's not really weird because it's what I've done forever. So it doesn't feel weird. I guess like when I first started hearing it and first became a professional surfer, it might have been like kind of a shock and odd to hear, but I guess that's what I'm most well known for is like aerial surfing. So it's
Is it true?
is it true that I'm one of the best aerialists?
Yeah.
Uh I guess so. Yeah, I'd say so. Um
What what makes a good aerial surfer?
Well, like in surfing, there's lots of different styles and things that some people are really good at. And so, there's like big wave surfing and surfing's really cool in the way that like you can kind of like choose your route and style and you know how like skateboarding, there's vert skaters or street skaters or
Yep.
um so I've actually, when I was really young, I was pretty into skateboarding, and I think that kind of translated into my surfing. So I was kind of like doing tricks and getting in the air and, doing that kind of surfing. So basically, being a good aerial surfer, a lot of the stuff you do is, above the wave, like doing tricks in the air and landing back in the wave and riding again. Whereas a lot of surfers tend to stick to the wave and just turn and cruise. And so it's I'd say it's more of like a radical approach, it's like
Yep.
say like you have like the Red Bull Rampage dirt or bikers who are doing flips in the air and crazy tricks versus someone who's just like a trail rider, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of like what I've really been drawn to and what I've liked to do and got um got decent at it and yeah, made my job.
You're very humble.
I don't know.
Now, how old are you now?
I'm 35.
And you've been surfing for how long?
I started surfing when I was my dad started taking me out on his board when I was probably like 2 years old. So, since I was tiny, but I didn't really heavily get into surfing till I was 12-ish, probably around there. I always surfed and I would go, with my dad or with friends here and there. Um, but it wasn't until had like a close group of friends that were into it as well and we could all go together and do it on our own without the help of our parents that I really got into it.
Interesting. What are the similarities to snowboarding, if any?
um similar shoot, it's maybe like the feeling you get, like, well, you get all sorts of different conditions, right? But the feeling you get when you're like carving on a beautiful, like, open wall of water can be similar, but the way you do it, the technique is actually quite a bit different. Um, and just the freedom of drawing your own line,
Mm-hmm.
and being creative. And then I would say being out like in nature and kind of like you're riding like, it's not like riding a skate ramp or something that's man-made. You're out riding, you know, God's creation or whatever. You're in nature, and it's just there's something really special about that.
Yeah, it seems very just freeing when you're out there.
Right. Yeah, it's what's really cool about surfing in comparison to other, board sports is you never ride the same wave twice. So
Ever.
yeah, so every time you catch a wave, you're in for a different experience. Obviously you can ride waves that are really similar, but it's never going to be exactly the same. So in a way it stays really exciting, and it's also what makes it so difficult and hard to get good at because you're it's really hard to like practice something over and over again when it's constantly changing. And
Mm,
then to be riding a wave that's moving under you and transforming, you really have to become good at reading what the ocean's going to do and how that wave's going to, like reading the wave and knowing how it's going to break and what it's going to do. It's a really special sport in that way where it's like unlike anything else, right?
mm-hmm. Now, how did you? I'm assuming it's like any other sport, though. You enroll in, tournaments or things like that. Is that how you got noticed, or am I just way off? If you couldn't tell, dude, I'm not very knowledgeable in surfing, but I do think it's cool. And I watched a lot of your videos last night, and I was like, this dude's fucking badass. Like, you're just shredding it up. So, is that how you get noticed, though? Is just like tournaments and things of that nature?
Yeah. So when I was younger, naturally they have like lots of contests for kids around here. And I honestly didn't ever think I was going to be a professional surfer. I just did it because it's what my friends were doing and we were having fun. And I had a lot of friends who were a lot better than me and were winning events. They were like the state champions and like on their way to being, insane surfers. And I was just kind of tagging along and having fun with them. And you, I think if you're really into it, you'll start doing contests and eventually you start getting noticed a little bit if you're doing well. And for me, when I was younger, I wasn't like that great. I wasn't winning or anything. I was just doing it to have fun with my buddies. And then it wasn't until I was probably like 17 that I started really improving and I started winning a few events here and there. Um, but I haven't made my career off competitive surfing. Um, there's like a few routes you can take. Uh, there's like the competitive surfers who their whole life is based on following a tour around, and they just go from event to event around the world and, they're trying to become world champion or whatever. And I realized when I was pretty young that I didn't enjoy competitive surfing. Like, even when I was winning an event or doing well, I always realized I had more fun when I was like just free surfing with my buddies and like trying new tricks and stuff like that. So I started just like filming a bunch with my buddies, and then I made a little movie part that got noticed. And so I've been able to, that's kind of like what boosted my career, is making video parts. And it was like kind of right when people started putting stuff out on YouTube or whatever. And um, it the internet kind of created a way for you to have a career without chasing the contests. So I've just always made video parts, and that's how I've done my career.
It seems way more fun.
Oh yeah, because
Not not a ton of pressure.
yeah, and when you're following like a event schedule, a lot of times you have to travel halfway across the world, and the forecast is terrible and the waves suck, and you're over there and you're surfing terrible waves and you're just trying to make it through a heat, and it's like I'd way rather use my money to travel knowing that the waves are going to be great at a certain spot and be there and film and surf incredible waves and have the freedom to do what I want, um, and make a sick video.
Well, then, when you're doing all that, it can turn into a job.
It can.
You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And that
for
takes the
sure.
fun and joy out of it.
It does for sure. I've been there like at points in my life where I've started to feel like when you're traveling like a lot and it's getting a little bit grindy, it starts to feel like that sometimes, especially if you're going on a trip and you're like, oh man, the waves are good at home right now and I have to go travel to this place where it's going to be shitty, and you're on planes constantly, like long flights. You're like, fuck, I wish I was just at home surfing, but every time I just remind myself, I'm like, I'm doing what I love. Like, I'm so lucky to be doing this. Like,
Hmm.
even the times where it does feel like a job, you got to just like, remind yourself, like, stop being a pussy.
Yeah, without
Yeah.
question. So you did play that game a little bit then of traveling traveling around and getting into contests and events and stuff like that, and then realize that you could kind of
Yeah.
go a different route and be more creative with your friends and just booling out on YouTube, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dive
When
into
I,
that transition a little bit more for me because a lot of people, man, they're going to jobs all the time, 9 to 5s, that they're just like, man, nah, this ain't for me. Like, I got to do this till I die or till I turn 60, right?
mhm.
And, people like you and I, we made adjustments to essentially end up doing what we love to do for a living. But not
Right.
everybody I shouldn't say not everybody can make that plunge because I'm a firm believer that they can, but it takes balls. Like, there's a lot of risk. So run me through your process and of doing that.
Well, when I was like, I want to say I was 16, my dad flipped out at me and he's like, you need to get a job. And I was just like, surf bum, and he's freaking out and he's like, you're going down and you're applying for a job at this restaurant, and we lived by this really nice restaurant. And so I remember he like forced me to put a collared shirt on and go down there and apply for a job. And I went in there thinking I was gonna maybe like bus tables or something, and they made me a dishwasher. And I went in and I worked for one day, and I was just this like little white kid with a bunch of like big, like, I think they're like Micronesian and like Tongan dishwashers, and they were like kind of, you know rousting the new white kid. And I remember hating it, and in that moment I was like, I want to be a pro surfer. That was like the moment I really want to do it, and I never went back. And I quit, and I think my dad was like super pissed off at me. And I just like really focused on my surfing. And then shortly, that's when I started doing a lot of contests and stuff, and I realized that wasn't the route I wanted to take. And there was this guy named Taylor Steele who is a at the time was like the if you were in a Taylor Steele surf movie, you were like that was like all the best surfers were in his movies, right? So he had a contest called Intersection, which was a video contest where you could submit a video part and try to get into his next movie. And I submit a part and ended up getting into the movie. And then the movie was its own contest where everyone who bought the movie could vote on their favorite section. So then once I got in the movie, I focused and made like a really good video part. And the winner of the best section in the movie won 100 grand. So I focused, made this part, and I didn't think I was gonna win because there was a lot of like, all my heroes were in this movie and all these great surfers. And I don't necessarily think I had the best footage, but I think I was a new face that people were really excited to see, and my footage was decent, and I ended up winning. Um, and that's what like totally boosted my career and like solidified me as a professional surfer. And from there, I was able to, get sponsors and make it my job.
I love that story because I've noticed this pattern or theme, at least like with me personally, and you tell your story and I see it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You take the risk, you quit the job, you're like, I'm not doing this, I'm going all in on surfing.
Yep.
That's pretty much the hardest part of the whole thing, right? That
Yeah.
initial jump, taking the risk. Okay. You work on it, you work on it, you work on it. And then if you keep doing that, you get the break.
Right.
And you got the break. Obviously, you worked really hard in the role and tried to put out the best product possible. Didn't think you were going to win, but you got the break. Boom. People know you now. 100 grand. You're all in. You got
Right.
your break. But you would have never gotten that break if you wouldn't have taken that risk in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think when you're younger, it's easier to take those risks,
Without a doubt. Yep.
is what I've noticed, is because you're still figuring your life out, right? So part of growing up is taking those risks. And I think what people run into as they get older is they get, stuck in whatever they're doing, and then, you know, financially or whatever, it's really scary to say, fuck this, this is what I want, and how am I going to make this work? And it's like I'm comfortable here. Maybe I can pay my bills, but I don't like what I'm doing. But there's a lot of risk in chasing what you love, and I think as people get older, they become more afraid of doing that. And I could totally understand why, but it's so worth it because you get one life, and it's like, you know you got to do it or you're going to be unhappy forever. It's like it's so worth it.
Yeah, I think people really get caught up in the family, the wife, the kids, the insurance for the job, etc. And dude,
Right.
I fucking get all that.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
I had all those things besides the kids part and I still did
Mm-hmm.
it and I was 28, 29. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
were a lot younger when you did it, but you're right. The younger you are, the easier it is to do
Mm-hmm.
because there's less variables that you have to navigate around,
Exactly. Yeah,
you
for
know.
sure.
But people still do it. It's still possible.
Oh yeah, you see it all
It's,
the time. and
you do.
and like, I mean, even me in my life, there's a lot of things I want to do that are, you know not surfing. Like, I honestly am more interested in, at this point in my life, in hunting and fishing, and because I've been surfing forever, and I've been
Mhm.
hunting and fishing forever, but I haven't traveled the world doing those things. I feel like there's like so much more to see and all this stuff, and I'm like trying to figure out how can I transition into a point where I can make those things part of my job as well. Um, because that's what's really interests me now, is the potential of being able to travel the world and bow hunt and see beautiful mountains and places that you wouldn't necessarily go to on a surf trip.
Well, it sounds like to me you need to have a conversation with the people over at Rockstar and tell them you need to make a hunting film, is what it sounds
Right.
like.
Yeah, for sure.
They're one of your sponsors, right?
Yeah. Yep. I'm with Rockstar. I'm with Salty Crew. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're like a
I've heard of them.
Yeah. So lucky for me, they're like just as into fishing as they are surfing, maybe even more so. So a lot of the stuff I do with them are really cool fishing trips, and I've got to go to incredible places fishing and doing that kind of thing. But with bow hunting, it's hard to convince them like, hey, I want to go do this, bow hunting trip because they that's not their demographic, right? But
Yep. Not yet, at least.
right, I know. I kind of want to be like, you guys should get into this. But yeah, that's my goal now is to be able to figure out how to travel and make that part of my life because it's always been growing up. Fishing and hunting is it's always been there, but it's been something that like surfing's my job, and this is kind of what I like to go do other than surfing. And I want to make it all in one package.
Yeah. This is a personal question, but any like crazy shark encounters? Because that's what would keep me the hell off a board.
Yeah.
I'm not with the sharks, dude.
Yeah, it's funny you asked that because this last like week has been like crazy shark stuff going on over here on
What
Maui.
what kind of sharks?
Um so not me personally, but this last week I had a good buddy who where I surf almost every single day got attacked but not bitten. He was paddling for a wave and then all of a sudden felt like someone was pulling on his leash, didn't know what was going on and got like stopped in the water and then flipped around and realized the shark had swam at him, got its went for him and got its mouth stuck in the leash and was under his board thrashing and going nuts, and he's like on his board and it's pulling him because the leash is in his mouth and he's trying to get it off his ankle so it can, and he got it off. This the shark finally like thrashed out and then he like got on his board and went to catch a wave to get away and then lost his board because his leash was off, had to swim for it, and then like made it to shore. And I just can't imagine how scary that was, like. And now I'm like freaked out because it's like where I surf every day.
Nope. Miss
And
me
it
with all of that, dude. No way. But it's equivalent out here, right? Like you hear about like grizzly encounters and shit. I live in Montana, so
right.
when you're bow hunting or whatever type of hunting you're doing, like, oh, so and so like ran into a grizzly, or hey, somebody over there on the west end got attacked by a grizzly. It's kind of the same thing in your world, right? Where
Right.
you're like, fucking somebody got bit by a shark, or that story you just told, kind of the same thing.
It is for sure. It's funny because I feel pretty comfortable in the ocean. I'm really into spear fishing and I see sharks all the time when I'm spear fishing, and I'm not very afraid when I can see them with my goggles and I have a spear gun and
That's because
you
you're in
know
a
you,
boat.
hmm?
That's because you're in a boat.
No, like in the ocean, like snorkeling.
Oh, dude, hell no. You're crazy. Seriously? You don't, that doesn't bother you?
No, because I can, I'm snorkeling and I can see them, and I have a spear gun, and so, you know, there's always the thought that one could come up from behind you when you don't see it, but you try to stay aware, and you usually dive with a buddy, so you're watching each other, but for sure you think of it, but I feel way more safe spearfishing where I can see underwater with my spear gun than I do just on a board where you can't see
Yeah.
underneath you, right?
Yeah,
And
because you have a weapon.
I run into them way more spearfishing, but I don't. It doesn't bother me nearly as much.
Well, you got a weapon too.
Yeah,
That helps.
yeah, for sure.
Opposed to a board that you're not going to hit it with, or like a
Right,
fist, right? You know what I
right.
mean? You'd
Yeah.
be like that what was that one movie back in the day where the dude fuck, what's that movie? Where the black guy, they like all these sharks are coming at these dudes on this boat that's like sinking, and he ends up he had like a cross necklace, and he took the cross and like stabbed the shark. What the hell was that? Deep Blue
Was it
Sea or something like that?
Jaws or maybe
No, it
Deep Blue
wasn't
Sea? I don't
wasn't
know.
Jaws. I think it was like Deep Blue Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Where he like stabbed the shark with a cross necklace. I don't know. I'm off on a tangent, but that's just what it reminded me of.
Yeah, yeah.
Needless to say, when you're surfing, you don't really have a whole lot to protect yourself.
No, not at all.
Good on you. Yeah, that's wild. So you're like you're a huge adrenaline junkie then. Is that correct to say? Fair.
Uh, I mean, compared to some of my friends, maybe not. Uh, but to the average, like,
To a guy like
person,
me, I feel like you're an adrenaline junkie.
yeah, maybe. I guess so. I have friends that do such wild stuff that would freak me out.
What are
So,
they doing that would freak you out?
uh, well, when I was younger, I was into surfing really big waves, which is really scary and like as high of a adrenaline as you could imagine.
For
Um,
perspective, what's a really big wave?
like the face of the wave is 60 feet. So I was really into it for years, and then I had a pretty close call to where I thought I was gonna maybe die, and I've slowed down a lot since then and had to kind of look at it and be like, okay, what do I really want to do here? And so I don't do that much anymore, but some of my friends are still traveling the world in search of like the craziest waves you could imagine, and still going after it. And then I have some friends who are into wingsuiting, the wingsuit
Yeah.
flying and stuff, and
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just like,
wild.
to me, that's just like next level. Um, but but yeah, I mean, I still like when the waves get really big. There's a part of me that still wants to, you know, have a piece of it, but I'm just like, like I have to tell myself, like, all right, is it really worth it? I did it for so long and got lucky and feel like I'm uninjured and I'm still alive. So,
What was and we don't have to touch on it if you don't want to, but I gotta ask. Anyways, what was that feeling like when you were on that huge wave and you had a super close call? You said you were close to
um,
death.
I had just we were surfing a wave called Jaws, which is like it's probably the most famous big wave spot in the world, and it's right here on Maui. And we were out there, and this huge wave came, and I caught it, and I rode down to the bottom, and then it just mowed me over. And I've fallen so many times out there, and it's radical and it's scary, and I've always been okay. But for some particular reason, this wave just like held me down forever, and the leash of my board wrapped around my legs really tight. So my legs were kind of pinned together, and um, I just didn't feel like free and couldn't really swim, and I was just down forever and ever. And I remember thinking, it's not letting me up, it's not letting me up. And when I finally popped up, I came up and I had maybe 2 seconds before the next wave hit me, which was just as big. Then the next one held me down even longer. And I remember like halfway through that hold down, just feeling like I was totally out of air. And I just felt like, okay, I'm going to eventually pass out here if I don't pop up soon. And you just get to a point where you're like, you can't fight it. And you're just like laying there. And I just remember thinking, like, holy shit, I'm going to pass out. And then I luckily finally popped up, got another breath, a few more breaths, and then another wave hit me, and I was so exhausted when my friend finally came to pick me up on the jet ski. I couldn't even like pull myself up onto the sled, and he dropped me off. Here I got on, and I just immediately like broke down into tears. I was like, because it felt like it was so close. Um, and just the adrenaline and the exhaustion, like so exhausted that like just the simplest like what took like barely any strength to pull yourself on, I was just like it just felt like you couldn't do it, right? And then my friend drops me off in the shore break to get onto the beach, and this is my board, my leash had come off and my board had gone into the rocks. So he drops me off in the shore break, and then leaves, and I got stuck in a current, and I was trying to swim in, and I was so tired, and then finally got washed up on these big boulders. I remember I just got up onto the rocks and just like bear hugged the shore, and I was like sitting there like pretty much crying. And then this guy comes in, walks by me, and it's this like big wave legend guy who's like notoriously been catching. He's just like a legend, been big wave surfing forever. And he looks at me, he's like, "You all right?" And I was like, "I just almost died." And he just looks at me and goes, "Well, that's part of it." And then just walks away. And I remember being like, "Holy shit, these guys are so gnarly." But but that was kind of what did it for me. I was just like, "All right, is this like really what I want to be doing like every time a huge swell comes?"
Did you think you were gonna die at some point?
When I was under on the second wave, I thought I was going to black out. Um, and I was like, "Okay, well, I was just kind of waiting, you know, and I got lucky and I didn't pass out."
When you, I've seen interviews with guys like basically military people when they talk about like near death experiences, they kind of classify, and this isn't, generalizes everybody, but one specific guy, he said that he kind of would have like life reviews when he was in that situation, like his whole life, like, oh, my life flashed before my eyes. Well, apparently that's kind of a real thing where you just like,
Hmm.
did that happen to you or no?
I don't remember that happening. I just remember I was in disbelief that I had been down for so long. And I was just going, Why am I still down?" And then I remember just being like, when you hold your breath really long and you need air, you start going, and that's
Yeah.
like it's a reflex. And from being a spear fisherman, I know that once you do that, you still have time. But when you're in a surfing situation, you've really exerted your body. So you don't have as much time as you would in a freediving situation where you're just relaxing and slowly kicking to the surface. Like it feels like you're just getting flipped every way and upside down and just whoa. So it's really hard to stay relaxed. So you're burning oxygen way quicker. And I was having those, I
Yeah.
was going, okay, I'm gonna probably pass out here soon. And then I just like, I didn't have I don't think I had one of those like look at my life type deals, but I just I just couldn't believe how long I was under. I was going, "Oh shit, this is it."
Now, is that a preventative measure that you try to take, like breath holds and stuff, just in case, shit turns south? Is that something that you practice, or is that common in surfing where, hey, like we need to be good at holding our breath for, I mean, guys can do it for a very, very long time. Is that something that you practice or just whatever?
For sure. I think a lot of surfers practice it. I'm really into spearfishing, so it's something I've kind of done my whole life. So that's kind of my practice is spearfishing and knowing how to breathe up and hold your breath and it's so much of it is just a mental thing. It's trying to stay calm when
Yeah, not
things
panic,
aren't
right?
yeah, when things aren't calm, and just trying to go to a place like in your head that's just like mellow when everything around you is like the furthest thing from mellow, right?
Hmm.
And that's how you're going to save oxygen. And obviously, if you think you're going to fall, trying to get a big deep breath before you do. um But there's times where you don't get that. There's been times where I've had the wind knocked out of me and you don't have any breath and you're under. And luckily that hasn't happened to me on like a huge wave, but you could find yourself in a lot of trouble if that happened.
Are you a big goal setter? Like, will you set goals? Some people do it at the beginning of the year. Some people do it, 3 months out. Do you like journal or set goals or anything like that?
I wouldn't say I have, no, not really. There's been like tricks I've wanted to do in my head, say surfing or something, and stuff like that. There's things I've wanted to accomplish, but I've never set specific goals and done it that way, which I feel like would probably help me a lot.
Eh, maybe. Do you do you manifest at all? Are you into that? Like, do you envision
Um,
yourself catching that perfect wave and landing that trick that you know is very difficult that maybe you're not very consistent with or things of that nature?
a little bit. I'd say like a lot of times when I'm sitting out in the ocean and there's like say a trick I want to do or whatever, I just like I'd like envision it happening and envision myself doing it over and over, and I like tell myself like you can do this, but that's kind of about it. Yeah,
That's
it's
enough. That's enough though.
yeah.
Um, because I've touched on it a little bit on here, like just positive self-talk and manifesting, like envisioning yourself accomplishing whatever it is that you're looking to do. And I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten a lot of messages with guys that are like, "How do you do that? Like, what does that look like?"
Mm-hmm.
So, I do my best to explain it to them, but it's great to get a different perspective with you. So you kind of just you sit there quietly and just close your eyes and then picture yourself doing what it is that you want to do.
Yeah. The trouble with surfing is every wave is different, so it's
Right.
hard. So like right now there's they have these wave pools.
Yep. We have one actually down the road from my house, believe it or not.
No way.
Yeah.
So the wave pool thing has changed surfing a lot because it's you're finally in a situation where you can repeat the same wave over and over. And it's totally changed the sport. Like young kids are getting really good at these
Hmm.
moves that would typically take 10 years to learn in the ocean. And they can learn it in an hour long session in a wave pool because they get fed the same wave over and over. And recently, I found myself, I was at one of these wave pools and there was a trick I wanted to do. And I had I had had a session there and I was supposed to leave the next morning. And at the very end of that session, I was like, I'm gonna try this. And I almost did it. And I went, whoa, I really want to land this move. If I land this, it'll be like the first of its kind in surfing and probably one of the best things ever done in a pool. So I was like, shit, what do I do? So I talked to the people. I said, I'm going to stay another day. Can I book a session for the morning? And so I went into that session with just wanting to land this one move. And it was one of the first times I'd been able to just be like focused on one thing and try the same thing over and over and over again. And I just like kept envisioning myself in between each wave landing it. And it took a long time. It took like most of the session. And I finally did it. But that was one, like, a rare moment where I was able to like really envision something and know that I was going to get that wave that was going to be the same every time and tweak each time trying to get better at it until I could pull it. But I feel like surfing in the real ocean is you just hope for that perfect section you're envisioning or wave that you're envisioning, but a lot of times it doesn't come.
Yeah, the situation has to be right, right? It has
Yeah.
to be the right wave to be able to land that specific trick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables that I didn't realize with surfing that you've brought up, which is
Hmm.
can be applied really to anything. I mean, nothing is going to be sometimes you have to wait on the right opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's
you see that with bow hunting all the time, right? It's never the same stalk. Very rarely is it ever the same animal. Very rarely is the wind coming at you like it did yesterday. Shit like that, you know? So,
yeah.
and
It's
I'm big on, man, I'm big on regardless you have to talk to yourself like you're gonna do it. Whatever it
right.
is that you're gonna do because if you go out, you grab your board, you paddle out there. You're like, fuck, dude. I'm like, there ain't no way I'm landing this trick today. Dude, you're not gonna land the trick.
No.
No, like if you go out bow hunting and I see, is that an axis behind you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you go out axis deer hunting. Man, we ain't gonna see shit today. We ain't gonna kill one. Dude, you're not gonna kill one.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So regardless, you have to talk that talk positively to yourself. It's because it's sometimes it's the only chance you have. Like if you don't think that you're gonna do something, you're just simply not gonna do it.
Yeah, no, you have to be like overly confident. And
Hmm. Blindly almost to a point.
yeah,
Like
it
delusional.
yeah, I think that's why I love bow hunting and fishing. Like all the things I do, they're just like you have to be they're so difficult and the opportunities are so few that I don't know, there's something about that that keeps you that makes it so exciting. And a lot of people I see with bow hunting, they get so discouraged, like new bow hunters, because it's so difficult. And then they pick up a gun. They're like, I'm over this. Because they go out bow hunting and they realize it's like, it is so hard and you have to be confident and you have to put the time in and you have to be okay with failing over and over and over and over again. And if you don't stick with it, you people just get discouraged. But that's what makes it so special is how difficult it is and how rewarding it is when everything finally comes together.
No, without question. I might have touched on it a bit before. I don't really remember what episode it was. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I do a lot of these, but my dad, I'm originally from Michigan, and
Okay.
my dad still lives there, so
Mm-hmm.
he lives kind of vicariously through me, watching
Mm-hmm.
me bow hunt these mountains and chase elk and mule deer and
Right.
antelope, and I'm always telling like he thinks chasing antelope with a bow is absolutely crazy. It is. It's very freaking difficult. I'm a firm believer. I don't know if you've ever hunted antelope with a bow or not,
Mm-hmm.
but if you can spot and stalk an antelope, you can spot and stalk and kill anything in this country. You
Right.
can. You can.
Yeah.
And I try to tell him, I'm like, dude, there's 10, let's just use a round number and say 10. There's 10 things that need to go right while spot and stalk bow hunting. And if
Mm-hmm.
nine and a half of those things go right, but the other half doesn't, you're not going to be successful. And then when 10 out of 10 do go right, you got to sprinkle a little bit of luck on top of that 10 as well to
Yeah.
be successful as well. So it's like, it's one of those things when it does happen, dude, like the best feeling in the absolute world, is it not?
It's the best. It's like I try to explain it to people and
You can't,
they
dude.
you can't.
You
And
can't.
it's just it's so addicting and it's so rewarding. It's like I don't know. It takes a special person to be able to like fight through all those failures to get there. But once you do, I feel like most people who end up getting there become addicted and they're just like, okay, I don't even want to hunt with a rifle because I want the challenge. I want it to be that hard and it's like it's it's crazy, man. It's so addicting. It's nuts.
Because there's so much learning that goes involved and there's so much failure. And I say this partly to be funny, but if we went out and killed every time, we probably wouldn't do it. I probably still would, right?
Right.
But the failures are really, really where you learn
Oh yeah.
what exactly you need to do, what exactly kind of little luck that you might need, what that stalk looks like. Those are the most important pieces. All those failures, all those mess ups, stupid rookie mistakes. I've made a ton of them, dude.
Oh yeah.
And you can't beat yourself up about it. You kind of just have to laugh it off, but be critical of yourself, being like, dude, don't do that again.
Yeah,
Don't do it
for sure.
again because it's going to be the same result. You have to try your hardest not to make the same mistake twice.
Oh yeah. It's so many times like say I'm hunting out, out the back and I can hunt deer right out my backyard.
Shut
But
up. Really?
yeah. Yeah. So I'll go out and if it's been a long day and I've had rough luck, I find myself like all of a sudden you find yourself getting a little lazy.
Hmm.
And you don't look at every single step you take and you break a twig or I find myself like sometimes I'll be like, ah, you're getting lazy. Fucking
You
stop.
become complacent.
Right. And
Yep.
you're like, and as soon as you start getting lazy, you blow it. It's like pop, you pop a twig that you didn't look down at and you blow a deer out and you're just like, ah, that was so stupid. You know better than that. But it's you have to be so turned on the whole time and just pay attention to every little detail because it all matters.
Yeah.
Like it's so important. And I just like it's funny because a lot of times I know that, and then I'll go out and I'll break one of my rules, and I'll be like, "Why did you do that?" And you blow it, and it's just like it's so.
Complacency kills, dude.
Mm-hmm.
It does. You
Yep.
get lax, and that's when your opportunity comes. I always make a joke. A lot of times we'll be hunting 3, 4, 5 days or whatever. I'll be out with a friend and we'll get off topic or, maybe take a break from the glass or whatever and we'll start like fucking around or taking photos or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then like then they'll come. Or
Right.
like then you'll have an elk run by you. So sometimes
Yeah.
I'll make a joke. I'll be like, "Hey, dude, we should just like act like we don't give a shit and just like start fucking off a little bit. Maybe we'll get an opportunity."
Yeah.
Because that's usually when it happens when you're not expecting it. You get complacent, or
Yep.
you just get lazy, like you said.
Yeah. Like this year, I was out in Idaho, and the elk were a lot of times quiet, and there was a few days where, and there was a lot of hunters in the area, and so you couldn't hunt how you would like to based on so many other hunters pushing shit around constantly. So it was really hard to say, okay, I know there's elk in this timber, and the best thing I could do is wait them out. And this evening, when they come out, make a play. But you knew this if you didn't dive in there, someone else would. And so you started having to make like terrible decisions like that, which I hate having to hunt like that. But because there was so much pressure and other people, it was almost like you had to play this game of being the first one there. And there'd be times where I'd be in the dark timber and I would just be like creeping, right? And there were times where I was like, I'm not going to take my shoes off and I'm just going to walk through here with my boots on and I'll go really slow. And sure enough, it was just enough to be loud enough to blow them out. And I was like, I should have had my shoes off because it was making such a huge difference. I'd do like 3, 4 miles barefoot in my socks, but I every time I did do that, I would come up on elk and usually get in on them. But the times I wore my boots, they heard me first, and it's just like little things like that where you're like, I don't feel like taking them off.
Hmm.
Just
You're
stupid stuff like that.
you're exactly right, dude. I had an opportunity a couple weeks ago where we were mule deer hunting and we had a general understanding of where this buck might be, and we were on top of these coulees, kind of peeking over the top, and
Mm-hmm.
sure as hell they were down there, and I decided to back up about 5, 10 steps and try to slip my pack off with 50 pounds worth of shit in it.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yep.
no, they heard me and they busted out clean.
Yep.
I got lazy. It's like, dude, shoot with your pack. Why, like, they can hear really good, dude.
Yeah.
I got lazy. I was like, oh, this will just be more comfortable. I'll be able to make a better shot. I got all the
Mm-hmm.
time in the world. They didn't see me peek over the top. They didn't. They heard me. They heard me
Yep.
taking off my pack.
Yep.
Why?
Man,
Why would I do that?
isn't it crazy how those little things matter? And it's like, I don't know why, even like, doing it for so long, you still like make those mistakes. You're just
Yep.
like, I know better than that.
Yep.
But
Are you married?
I'm not. No, I have a girlfriend.
How long y'all been together?
Coming up on 3 years, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. About time to get that dirty knee, I suppose, huh?
Yeah, she's sleeping right now, but I just recently got her into bow hunting.
Did you? Good for you. Is
Yeah.
she loving it?
She loves it, but we end up arguing the whole time.
Yeah, dude,
It's pretty
it,
funny.
it's funny you say that because my wife, we ended up getting her a bow a couple years, and she's really good with it, right? She wanted to
Hmm.
kind of get out and come bop around with me, and long story short, she hasn't.
Hmm.
But that's okay with me because and she knows this, so I'll say it on here. I like that time. I like that time
Right.
away where it's just me,
Yeah, me too. That's
or
like,
just me and a buddy. And she likes that time when I leave too, so she can have her time. So it would be something really fun for us to do, but I'm definitely not mad, and I'm not gonna pressure her into like trying to get into it because I like doing it when I really like that time alone.
oh yeah. No, that's like, it's so crucial for me to be able to go out by myself and just be out there.
Hmm.
It's like meditation or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure, it's so important. Um, I'm lucky because I can go all the time. We don't have a hunting season here. It's just all year. So I can hunt multiple times a week if I want, and so I get that a lot. So
What does access look like for non-residents? Like
it's
if I wanted to come.
it's difficult. It's
Really?
so our biggest issue here is like most of the deer we have is all on private land, and getting access to hunting areas is the hardest part of the whole deal.
Yep.
Um, the public hunting units, it's actually it's kind of sad what's happening here, but they're like doing heavy eradication of the deer. And I've watched areas that used to have hundreds and thousands of deer, like now there you barely see any. And but they're eradicating public hunting units, and most of our public hunting units don't have that many deer. So like someone could come here and go hunt our public units, but there's not many deer to begin with, and they are starting to eradicate those areas because they look at the deer as an invasive species. Um, but I'm like pretty upset with how they're dealing with the whole eradication thing, and it's a lot of people are.
Yeah, I
It's
bet.
sad. It's sad to see happen. There obviously needs to be a balance of how many deer in an area and what it can handle, and what's good for the environment. But I think that it's gone overboard, and I think they're not looking at the deer as this as an incredible resource that we have here, and they in no way are encouraging public hunting to manage it. They'd rather just go up and do eradication from helicopters and
Yeah, just
heavy
mow them down.
fencing and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And I just think there's such a great opportunity to come up with a really good solution with public hunting and ways to they're worried about planting new trees and the deer eating them, I'm like a firm believer that it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Right.
And it's a stupid thing because you could eradicate a shitload of deer, and one deer could damage, a whole crop. So, like, and you're never going to get them all, So I feel like instead of spending all this money on killing all these deer, let's encourage public hunting. Let's use that money for planting projects and build small fences around the plants while they're small enough that they can be eaten, and once they're big enough, then everything can live together. But they're just like kill, we don't care about the deer, and just like it's really sad to see.
Well,
It's
Matt, that would make too much sense, buddy.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. It's so crazy because I have like some Hawaiian friends who are like, pure blooded Hawaiian people who have been here forever, and they're like in tears about it because hunting's always been a way of life for them. And even though the deer were only introduced in the 1800s, like that's a huge part of their food resource. And to see people profiting off killing them and to see the extent they're taking it is just like heartbreaking. Um,
And I've heard axis is maybe the best big game meat that you can have.
it's incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good. It's right up there with elk and antelope. It's I mean a lot of people think it's better.
Yep.
Um, I eat so much axis deer that I'm like really excited about having a freezer full of elk right now. But
Absolutely.
uh but it's yeah, it's really sad to see. Um I just wish they would come up with better solutions, and it just feels like they don't want people to be self-sufficient, and they don't care about the hunters, and they just I don't know. I wish someone else was in charge and they would involve the community and come up with good plans. But
Dude,
they're not.
nothing makes sense anymore, man.
Yeah, it's
I
a
mean,
bummer.
turn the news on. Like
Right,
what like it
exactly.
I don't even I don't even know where to start, dude. Like
Right.
it's ridiculous. You have all
Yeah,
these politicians, all these suits, all these yes man. All of them are getting paid off.
yeah,
All of them are rigging the stock markets. All of them are trying to control what we say, what we do, what's in our food, et cetera, et cetera. It's like where do you even begin? How do you even clean that up?
right. Yeah. It's the whole system is just fucked. I don't know.
It, it's completely broken, man.
Right.
Completely broken.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd hunt as much as you could. The fact that you don't have a season is rad.
It's incredible. I'm so lucky.
When do they breed? Do they get pretty crazy? Like do they
Yeah.
like for rutting activity? When do they breed?
That's I'd say June is the best month.
Okay.
It's when they're really like going nuts, but all summer long from April till the end of summer. Like honestly, 2 days ago I heard one screaming out my back door.
No shit.
So yeah, which it's really late season for them to be
Yeah.
breeding, but he was calling, and um but
Do you have a
I
little
think
piece of
because
property out there then, or
yeah, I got 2 acres here, and then it's really awesome. My buddy has a property and a little lease here that I can hunt on, and have this giant gulch that there's a bunch of deer in, and so I'm really
really cool?
lucky. But back to non-resident hunting here, like for me, most of the time I'm hunting is when I get is I can go right here, but like if I want to go hunt really good areas, like say on some of the ranches, it's when I'm invited by one of the
Mm-hmm.
ranchers. I'm lucky I have a couple friends, but for a non-resident to make all those connections, and it's tough. And if you're
Yep.
just gonna come hunt a public hunting area, you can get deer. You got to put the time in, but I wouldn't say it's the type of hunting where you're gonna get multiple opportunities every day.
Yeah. No, that
Um,
makes
it
sense.
It used to be that way though. Over in Lanai, there was a really cool area where they had public bow hunting, and it was loaded with deer. I remember probably 8 years ago, I was over there and there were deer everywhere in the public units. And the last time I went, it was hardly any compared to what it was. Um, and now they have these state hunts over there, uh, which is on the opposite side of the island. And Um, I think you can sign up for those as a non-resident, but that is it's weird because first of all, I'm pretty sure they do it like in February when the bucks they're like little they're just like little velvet nubs. I'm like, why
Right.
wouldn't you do it at least during the rut? Like you're gonna have this public hunting deal, and it's just like for 2 weekends, and it's on the opposite side of the island as those other public units. Um, but the best way is to like somehow make connections with like someone who is affiliated with one of the bigger ranches here, because that's where most of the deer
Yeah,
are.
that makes sense. Sounds very similar to Texas. A lot of private land there. It's hard to access really any type of public for whitetails or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. What is
Like,
a couple more things, dude, and I'll let you slide, but what does a typical day look like for you? Like how do you what's it look like?
uh, depends what time of year it is. But basically my whole life is based off the weather, I guess. But like if there's good waves, I'm waking up, having a quick little breakfast or coffee, and I'm call one of the guys who films, and I go surf, and they film and try to get footage. Um, but if there's no if the waves aren't good, like honestly today it's super stormy out and kind of rainy. It's like an insane hunting day. Like if the waves aren't good, I love to get out and go hunting. Or if there's no wind and the water's really nice and there's no waves, I'll be fishing
Yeah.
or diving. Um, and that's I just kind of live my life based off the weather, which is dream scenario.
Yeah. Do you do any
Yeah.
like weight training or anything?
No, it's funny you ask. I don't do much training. I let It's funny, I look at my surfing as training for my hunting, and then my hunting is training for my surfing, kind of. Because the hunting
That
and
actually checks out. I can get down with that. That makes sense.
yeah, so like with hunting, like I feel like it keeps my legs pretty strong,
Hmm.
and which is great for surfing, having, like strong legs so you don't blow your knees out and stuff. And then the surfing is like great cardio because you're out for hours and hours
Yep.
constantly moving, and then that translates into my hunting. So I have this like they kind of work together, and I feel like I stay in really good shape that way. Um, but just recently, I was up at a buddy's house, and he's pretty into weightlifting, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to this weightlifting class with my buddy. You want to come?" And I went, and it wrecked me because
Yeah.
I just jumped right into it, and like my hamstrings, we did like a bunch of hamstring stuff, and they were just cooked for like like they're just now finally starting to feel better. Um, and I think it's just because my body's not used to just like jumping straight. I was kind of stupid. I should have went way lighter and listened to my body when it was sore. But I've kind of relied on the different stuff I do to be my training.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes
it's
sense.
but I feel like it was interesting being like out elk hunting. It's so I'd say it's pretty grueling depending on the terrain compared to hunting in Hawaii because the areas we're hunting here in Hawaii are pretty small, you know,
Yep.
because you always run into a border, you run into someone else's land or whatever. So it's usually not an like, you're not doing 4 or 5 thousand vertical feet in a day.
Hmm.
And so going out elk hunting, you're like, wow, you definitely got to be in shape. I
Yep.
feel like when I come home, I hunted all month for elk this year, and I felt like when I got home, I was in like the craziest shape of my life, for
Yeah, and
sure.
it'll take you some time to get those mountain legs back too.
Oh yeah,
Even for guys like me, like we live out here and still, that first week or so of season, it's like, fuck, because you're wearing a pack and you got that pressure on your hips and your boots.
right.
And it takes a little bit of time. And, after a week or so of being out there, you're like, okay, like my legs are getting
Mm-hmm.
it back into mountain shape. So,
Right. Um, it's crazy because elk hunting, you got especially like over here, you're not bringing extra layers and like so your pack's relatively light most of the time. I got like a knife in there, my water bladder, and some flashlights, and really like that's about it, you know?
yep. Yep.
maybe some lunch. But elk hunting, you got all your layers that you got to shed. It gets cold. It's like all of a sudden you pick up your pack. I remember every time I've gone elk hunting, I remember the first day I always pick up my pack and I just go, shit, this thing is so much heavier than my pack at home. But yeah, it's elk hunting is radical. It's a different type of hunting for sure.
It is. I like asking this question every now and then to specific guests. Um, I'll ask you: is there anything in your life that you're putting off at the moment? Like you know you should be doing this, but for whatever reason you're just like, "Fuck, nah, I'll do it tomorrow," or "Nah, it's too difficult. I don't want to do that right now." But you know deep down that you should be doing it, and that could be anything, man.
I've got like a million of those
Let's
things.
hear them. Let's hear them. Let's hold Matt
Oh
accountable.
man, I bet. So I really want to learn to edit footage, like on a, like
DaVinci
not just like,
Resolve, whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
something like that. Because I'm constantly I have all this surf footage or fishing or hunting footage that I'm relying on other people to create for me, and it's hard because people are busy and they're constantly got other stuff going on, and I end up like waiting forever for, and it's just like if I just knew how to do that. I have the vision in my head. Half the time someone else edits something for you, it's their expression of how they want it to be, and it's like I should just be doing this myself.
Yep.
So I want to learn to do that. That's a huge one. I think it would make my life so much easier, and it would make just me as like a surfer and a content creator just easy. Just eliminate the dealing with other people, relying on other people. And then so many things, like I'm trying to plant a fruit orchard right now, and I've been trying to do it for like over a year, and I keep like I dug the holes, and then I ended up having to go on a trip, and then I get busy with other things in my life, and now every hole I have like 70 huge holes in my yard, and all the holes are filled with like huge weeds and giant grass now, and I'm like, wow, now it's just like an even bigger problem.
Yeah, now it just looks like shit.
Yeah, and then mowing the lawn's like 10 times as hard, and I'm like, so
Fill the holes.
I need to pretty much, yeah, buckle down and get this fruit orchard finished, get the irrigation in, like, and I just keep putting it off. But it's hard because I have like trips that I have to go do, and then I have all these different things that I'm trying to get done. And it's just like I just want to like spend like 2 weeks and just do it every day till it's finished.
Hmm.
Um, Stuff like that. It's like little things in life that you're just constantly like, I should be working on this, but I decided to go bow hunting this evening
Yep.
instead of doing, yeah.
It happens. We'll do it again. The podcast that is. And
Hmm.
next time we get you on, I'm gonna make a mental note to ask you how the orchard's going and if you've learned how to
Right.
edit a damn video. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
For sure.
Uh last thing, man, this is just kind of a goofy question. How many rock stars are you drinking a day?
Honestly, I don't drink very many.
Like one a
Um,
day or like sometimes you won't even have one?
a lot of times I don't have one. I feel like I save them for when I really need them. Like if I'm out on a boat and we're fishing all night, um, because sometimes I'll go fish commercially with a buddy. That's his job, and I like to go, and you fish all through the night. So like I like to have them then, or just when I'm like really need to stay up.
Yeah.
But I'm not drinking them to like quench my thirst. I'm drinking them like when I need the energy.
Well, that's
Um,
good because a lot of people just drink them just to drink them because they taste good. That's how I used to be.
yeah, yeah, no, a lot of, and I mean, that's cool, but I like to use them when I need them. I
Sure.
drink water to quench my thirst, and
Hmm.
that's about it. And
That's
then
good.
coffee in the morning, and then yeah, I'll drink a rock star when I'm like really needing energy.
I'm imagining they probably ship you like crates of them.
They
I'm
do.
hoping that you don't have to go to the gas station and buy a Rockstar if you're freaking sponsored by Rockstar.
Well, you know what's funny is they'll send me as much as I want, but it turns into like a problem sometimes because they'll send so much that I have them
If you don't
like
have anywhere to put them.
stacked up in my garage, and it's like collecting dust, and it's like I'm like, what do I do with all of these? It's almost would be easier for me to just go and grab one when I go to the, or just be like, send like a little less.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think Rockstar just came out with a new one that's more of like a focus type
Okay.
deal. Um, and
It's probably got
I
like lion's mane in it or whatever.
something like that maybe.
Yeah.
I
Maybe.
wanted to talk to him and see what's in that one because that would probably be something I would drink more than like a hardcore energy
Yeah.
type deal. Something that would help you focus. But I'm pretty cautious about what goes in my body and it being super healthy. And so like I've always like they had this organic flavor that was like made of all the sugar was just cane sugar, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
and that was the one I always drank. Um but I'm curious what's in the new Focus ones.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're out there. Maybe I'll check them out next time I go in there.
Yeah.
Um, all right, dude. I try to ask this to everybody, so I'll ask you as well. You got a feel for the show now. We've been talking for just over an hour. You kind of got to know me a little bit. Give
Mhm.
me 3 future guests that you feel like would be a good fit for the podcast. You can't
Oh
say Shane
man.
either because he's supposed to come on.
Shane would be my first one. Um let's see.
In any space, you could even give me like the most interesting person that you know. I don't just talk about hunting and other shit. Like I love talking about all
Let's
types of
see.
things.
I have a buddy. His name's Chris Culver. He's a
With
that's
a
who I
C,
elk. Yep,
Culver.
yep. He is who I hunted with all season, and he's also a really into spearfishing and goes down to Mexico and spears a lot of big fish. And all his story from our hunting trip, like he's my hero. He
Right on.
Before we went hunting, a week before, he got hit by a car on his bike, chipped his hip, broke his wrist, and got staples in his head. And he calls me. He's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the trip. And then I'm scrambling trying to figure out how I'm going to go elk hunt for a month because I was relying on him. And then last minute, he's like, I'm fucking going. And he went. He had a lump on his hip bigger than a baseball, like giant,
Ugh.
with this huge rash, staples in his head, was drawing his bow. He had to like wear a wrist strap release, and he'd like put his wrist strap down here and pull his bow back like this. Could barely get it back. And he toughed it out through the whole trip. And then we hunted New Mexico. He couldn't wear the belt strap on his backpack. Just like beasted it out and kept it on his shoulders the whole time. And then ended up tagging out in New Mexico. We go to drive up to Idaho, and his truck breaks. And he bought a brand new truck to save the hunting trip.
This fucking guy, huh?
Yeah,
All
dude,
right.
you got to talk to him about it, and I'm sure he
All
has
right.
crazy stories about Mexico and fishing and bluefin fishing in San Diego, and he's a really cool guy,
Cool,
Chris
cool.
Culver.
Got it. Who else you got?
Um, shoot, who would be another good one? Oh, trying to think of. You know who would be a cool guess is he's his name is Dave Wassel, and he's like a ex big wave surfer. He's into bow hunting, and he's a North Shore Hawaii lifeguard. So he's
Interesting.
seen some like gnarly stuff, and probably has some really cool stories.
Interesting. He's online too, Instagram and stuff.
Yeah,
Cool. I'll
yeah, he's
find him.
a Dave Wassel, and he's a funny, got a classic personality, and he's just a funny guy, and I'm sure he has some crazy like lifeguarding
Yeah,
stories
yeah,
and
yeah. I'd like to dive into that. That'd be cool.
um who else? Mark Healy.
I feel like I have that name written down somewhere.
You might.
What's his last name?
Healy, Healy.
Kip might have gave me him, maybe, possibly. That sounds really
Good
familiar.
chance.
I probably
Yeah.
follow the guy. I don't know. Who
He's
knows?
he'd be awesome, and he's into bow hunting. I'm going on a trip to New Zealand with him in April. We're gonna go hunt red stag.
Right on.
But he's a great hunter and a one of the best spear fishermen in the world.
Awesome.
Yep. Uh-huh.
I
And he's
appre
also a big wave surfer, but incredible spear fisherman. Like that guy can hold his breath forever.
Heck yeah.
And if you want shark stories, he's probably got a million of them. And so I'd say that those are three really good guys. I'm sure they all have really good stories.
Cool. I'll hit him up. I appreciate it. Where can everybody find you? Instagram, YouTube page, shit like that.
Instagram is probably best. Yep. And then everything I might put on YouTube or whatever, you'd probably see me post it through my Instagram.
Cool. Well, I'll drop that
Yeah.
in the show notes, man. Um, I appreciate it, man. This was a lot of fun. These are my favorite pods to do where we don't know each other. We just get on and fucking shoot from the hip. So this was sweet.
Yeah, man. Be stoked to stay in touch and I'll be listening to all your podcasts and stoked to talk to you.
Appreciate you, man. Stay on the line. Let's make sure your file downloads, and then I'll get you out of here. Sound good?
Okay, cool.
All right, Matt. Thanks, brother.
All right. Have a good one.